across Eastern Asia. In our first story today on CNN 10, I'm Carl Azus. It's great to have you watching. U.S. President Donald Trump is on a 13-day trip to 5 countries. In order, it includes stops in Japan, South Korea, China, Vietnam, and the Philippines. The White House says his 2 main objectives are addressing the nuclear threat from North Korea and discussing international trade. Both topics came up in Japan, where President Trump spent Sunday and Monday. The U.S. and Japan are close allies. They've both been threatened by North Korea. And during a news conference alongside Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, the American leader echoed something that U.S. Vice President Mike Pence said about North Korea.
The era of strategic patience is over. Some people said that my rhetoric is very strong. But look what's happened with very weak rhetoric over the last 25 years.
North Korean government officials say they're closely watching President Trump's Asia visit. He's scheduled to be in South Korea Tuesday, and the Communist North called President Trump a war maniac and said that if he does anything crazy, North Korea will respond powerfully.
Here in Tokyo, the top priority is the U.S.-Japan alliance. So you can expect to see Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and U.S. President Donald Trump projecting friendship as they tackle 2 major issues, trade and North Korea. Over in Pyongyang, officials are still furious over President Trump's speech at the United Nations when he threatened to totally destroy their country and insulted their leader, calling him Rocket Man. They're also angry about ongoing joint military exercises. The North Koreans tell me the time for talk is over, and it's time to send President Trump a message.
In Manila, President Trump will meet a fan of his in Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte. The popular but controversial figure has had nothing but praise for the U.S. leader, and the two will discuss Duterte's ongoing war against drugs. The big question, will Trump bring up alleged human rights abuses committed by Duterte's government while targeting not only drug dealers, but drug users as well?
The priority for South Korea during Trump's visit is North Korea. President Moon Jae-in has gone along with the U.S. policy of sanctions and pressure, but ultimately Moon wants dialogue, more engagement with the North, and it's a desire that in the past Trump has called appeasement. And then there's trade. Trump has convinced Seoul to renegotiate the trade deal between the 2 countries, but Seoul doesn't want many changes.
President Trump's biggest scheduled challenge in Vietnam will likely be convincing APEC leaders of his views on free trade. He'll address the Asia-Pacific Economic Committee summit, telling them he wants fair trade and balanced trade. Perhaps the most watched event, if it does happen, is a possible bilateral between President Trump and President Putin of Russia. Although if it does take place, it's likely to be shrouded by discussions of Russian meddling in U.S. presidential elections. The other event, still not on the schedule, that may happen, a trilateral between President Xi of China, President Putin and President Trump. Likely North Korea on that agenda.
The biggest issue for China when President Trump arrives here in Beijing will be North Korea. The Trump administration wants China to do more to force North Korea to stop developing its nuclear weapons. China says it's doing enough already. That issue will dominate conversations. They'll expect discussions over things like trade and opioids as well.
In the U.S. state of Texas, new details are coming to light following a shooting in the small town of Sutherland Springs. 26 people were killed after a gunman opened fire during Sunday services at the First Baptist Church. The victims ranged in age from 1.5 years to 77 years old. 20 others were wounded, and several were in critical condition last night. Texas Governor Greg Abbott called the attack the largest mass shooting in Texas's history. It's not known yet what motivated the killer. He was a 26-year-old man named Devin Patrick Kelly. He was discharged from the U.S. Air Force in 2012 for bad conduct. Investigators say he had domestic problems and had recently shown anger toward his mother-in-law, who attends the church. Governor Abbott says Kelly wasn't supposed to have access to a gun, that he'd applied for a license in Texas but was denied it. Still, police say he bought the rifle he allegedly used in the attack from a store last year. And after yesterday's shooting, Kelly was confronted and shot by a resident of Sutherland Springs.
I saw the shooter coming out about where the cars were parked and the other gentleman coming from across the street. Both had weapons drawn, and in a matter of half a second, there was exchange of gunfire. It lasted just a few seconds, and the shooter got in his vehicle and took off, and the gentleman with the rifle came across the street, opened my door and said he just shot up the church and we got to chase him, and I said, let's go.
Johnny Langendorf also said the shooter eventually lost control of his vehicle and crashed into a ditch. He was found dead by police. It wasn't clear whether Kelly died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound or the original shot by the armed resident. Officials say 4% of Sutherland Springs' population was killed in the shooting. One resident describes the community as a small Christian town where everybody's close to everybody. 10-second trivia. Which of these automotive features is the oldest? Windshield wipers, automatic transmission, 3-point seatbelt, or rear view mirror? The window cleaning device, which was patented in 1903, is the oldest. Rear view mirrors weren't used until years later. Some of today's windshield wipers are fully automatic. Some of today's rear view mirrors have screens connected to backup cameras, and side view mirrors now feature lights for both turn signals and to indicate if there's a driver nearby. Auto braking, auto high beam control, autopilot, all examples of how automotive technology has come a long way since Mary Anderson's invention of the windshield wipers. And as that technology drives forward, so do the sounds it comes with to make us aware of the cars around us.
Alarms. There's the ones that wake you up in the morning, tell you you've got a message, that your lunch is ready, to close the fridge door, emails, phone calls, Skype calls, Facebook message, turbulence, Amber Alert. And one particular researcher has created this, an alarm to stand out from the crowd. An alarm to stop a head-on car collision. Her name is...
Carol Baldwin.
And she's...
I am the director of the Human Factors and Applied Cognition program at George Mason University.
So how do you go about creating one of the world's most annoying sounds?
We started out by going out and getting recordings of actual sounds that were in automobiles currently. Then we took those sounds back to the lab.
Once they collected the sounds, it was time to test on people. They created a system where the listener could
play a sound and then put it in a category
that the sound most represented. Either a low urgency, like a Facebook notification, a medium range urgency, like a check engine alert, and finally, a high level urgency, like an oncoming collision warning.
And then from there, we set up a series of driving simulator studies. And they're driving along and they're doing another task just to kind of give them a distraction component. And then suddenly, unexpectedly, the car that they're following would brake suddenly. And we looked at their collision avoidance response, the timing of that.
They created the perfect forward collision warning alarm. And this was really important because
we found that the sounds being used currently weren't perceived as being very urgent. You know, a poorly designed sound can be more dangerous than not having a warning at all.
So thanks for using the most annoying sound to keep us safe.
Earning a perfect 10 out of 10, Max and Quackers. Sounds like a snack? It's not. Max and Quackers are the names of this dog and duck duo who've been friends for a long time. After Max's good friend, another husky, passed away, his owners acquired Quackers, who also appeared lonely. So setting their species aside, these two buddies bonded and have been inseparable ever since. Now they're an attraction for any passersby in their home of Strout, Minnesota. So would you say the duck has gone to the dogs, or that a dog's life is for the birds? If it looks like a duck, swims like a duck, and quacks like a duck, it could be exactly the kind of dog or duck that fits the bill for a dog's best friend. I'm Carl Azuz, and we'll be quacked tomorrow.